In this, the programmer God model, the electron mass state is a point, but there doesn't seem to be a length object associated with that point. And if we define 3D space in terms of length, then we could conjecture that this mass point exists in another coordinate system that is outside our 3D space. The simplest explanation, because of course this is conjecture, is that the universe is the 4-axis hypersphere that is constantly expanding. And what we see as 3D space is the surface of that hypersphere. So far, this model has been able to solve the physical constants using only Planck units and an electron formula. To continue this, would have our universe expanding 1 unit of Planck length per unit of Planck time, and this gives us the object for velocity v. And so object v is the speed of light. Simply put, the hypersphere is expanding at the speed of light. And if all particles are on the surface of the universe, then all particles and planets are moving at the speed of light, pulled along by this expansion. And if this expansion is the source of all motion, then everything travels at, and only at, the speed of light in hypersphere coordinates. There is no other speed. However, unlike particles, light waves, the electromagnetic spectrum, are not pulled along by this universe expansion. Instead, they are left behind. And so although we, as particle people, are in the now, light waves come from the past. They are date stamped. Light takes 8 minutes to reach us from the sun, and so those light waves are 8 minutes old when they arrive. Let us suppose there are two particles, A and B, and they both have the same frequency, equal to 6 units of time t. They begin at origin O. After 6 units of time, they are now here. They both traveled the same distance as OA equals OB, where this circle represents the expanding hypersphere universe. And the horizontal axis, our 3D space. However, from the perspective of A's timeline axis, which is A's expansion axis, the axis along which A is being pulled by the universe expansion, B has moved away from A, although B can equally argue that A is moving away from B. In hypersphere terms, both are correct. In the video on the electron, it was conjectured that the electron is an oscillation between an electric wave state and a mass point state. Here, this would mean particles A and B spend 5 units of time as waves and 1 unit as points. We can now add the points to our diagram. Again, from the perspective of A's timeline axis, B has a mass point every 3 units of time, whereas A has a mass point every 6 units of time. And so the mass of B is twice the mass of A. Conversely, B can argue the reverse. And hypersphere coordinates, both A and B are the same, OA equals OB. But as A and B receive their information from light waves, which can only transverse the hypersphere horizontally, and so are limited to 3D space, A and B cannot detect the speed of light universe expansion, only events and motion relative to themselves. This suggests that when we discuss relativity, we are actually translating between the two coordinate systems, our relative 3D space and constant time, constant velocity, constant expanding 4-axis hypersphere. Relativity then becomes the mathematics of perspective, this 4-axis hypersphere projected onto our 3D space. Let us give our particles now a spin axis, and so a north and a south pole. Particles A and B expand as waves for 5 units of time, then collapse into mass points at their north poles. This means that when I hit particle B with some momentum, then what I'm doing is changing the spin axis angle. Particle B will expand as normal in the wave state, but will collapse into the point state at a different place. It is still being pulled along by the universe as normal, simply its axis has changed, and so its motion relative to A will change. In summary, all particle motion is a consequence of the hypersphere universe expansion at the speed of light. Our universe model is still using only Planck units and mathematical particles. And as the Planck units can be extracted from mathematical particles, we saw this with the electron, our universe is beginning to look like a particle itself, perhaps even similar to the electron, albeit with a wavelength and frequency of hundreds of billions of years. This is because if we use the temperature of space as a guide, and now it is about minus 270 degrees, the universe will reach absolute zero at 10 to the 123 units of time, after which it can no longer expand and so will presumably end. The present age of the universe is 13.8 billion years, which equates to 10 to the 62 units of time. An electron wavelength, or electron timeline, a lifetime, is 10 to the 23 units of time. This raises an interesting philosophical question. If the electron is a miniature universe, then is 10 to the 23 units of time enough for microworlds to appear within? Furthermore, the electron is fixed according to that formula Fe we looked at earlier. This means that regardless of how many oscillations it undergoes, it never changes. However, if our actions are non-deterministic, this free will conundrum, will we change the universe itself? In other words, will we rewrite that formula? A couple of notes. If we do simulate a Planck unit universe using only Planck units, we haven't included particles, then we find that at 14.6 billion years, its mass, density, temperature, etc., i.e. those cosmic microwave background parameters, will resemble our own 13.8 billion-year-old universe. That will be looked at later, but the link is here. Also, when we look at gravitational orbits in reference to this Planck universe model in the next video, we find that dimensionless constant alpha, one of our two fundamental constants, appearing in our 3D space. I will leave with a quote by Richard Feynman on this alpha.